think about what
Chase Building.
for the Chase.
We can put a stand for the Chase. A little bit of Sheraton, go over there. That's all. Like this.
Think about what you want. We don't want to park it and need to put money. That's reasonable. That's reasonable. We're willing to even to have a temporary bag on there. Think about how.
Steve, will you please? Senator Deposit? Is this traffic commission? Yes. Senator Deposit? Well, I'd rather not, actually. One thing. Let me just fill it out just in case.
Oh, okay, thank you. Let's see.
He's the last item. Stephen Landis.
Okay. It's 1:33. The February 21st meeting of the Oklahoma City Traffic and Transportation Commission's call to order. Jim Witcher. Here. Dan Martin. Here. Walter Kula.
Here, sir.
James Schuline.
Here.
Iman Jenkins. John May. Here. Milford J. Clayton. Commissioner Clayton, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Let us bow our heads in the attitude of prayer. Eternal source of our being and sustainer of our infinite hopes and dreams, we come this afternoon with our heads humbly bowed, thanking you for all the blessings that you have bestowed upon us, and let us ever be mindful that you are the source of our need. As we go about the people business, please help guide and direct us. We here for one purpose only, to serve this great community. And we pray that the things that we do, they will meet with your approval. Bless each family that's represented here at this given moment. And we said this in all words. Here we are once again, but we are going to end this conversation with 5 words. Let thy will be done. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Item 2A, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 21st meeting?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Clayton, seconded by Commissioner Schuline to approve the minutes. Could I have your votes, please? Approved unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, would record note that I abstained since I was not present at that meeting.
Thank you. Item 2B, I'd like to welcome Commissioner Jenkins, representing Ward 7.
Yeah, the Municipal Counselor's Office has seen that she's properly and duly sworn in to serve on the commission.
Thank you. Welcome aboard. Item 3, report on licensed taxi and wrecker services. That will be presented on the April meeting. The consent docket is item, the consent docket, item A. Do I have a motion to approve? Is there anyone wishing to speak against something that's on the consent docket?
I move for approval.
Second. I have a motion by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Martin, to approve the consent docket. Could I have your further discussion? Could I have your votes, please? That's approved unanimously. Item 5, items for individual consideration. Item 5A, presented by Jill Jackson, Assistant Municipal Counselor. And this is in reference to Municipal Code 32-408 and 56-60. The request is to consider a recommendation to the Oklahoma City Council on an ordinance amending the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2007 by repealing subsection D of 32-408 of Chapter 32 and adding new subsections D and E to paragraph 56-60 of Chapter 56.
Yes, this doesn't represent a substantive change to the ordinances. This is just an amendment to consolidate all of the taxi ordinances into a single chapter.
Jafar Najam, did you wish to speak on this item?
No, sir, I'll just have my suggestions at the end of the citizens' comment.
I'm sorry, if you'd step up to the microphone, please.
I'll just rebuttal my suggestions at the end, at the citizens' comments.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Do I have a motion to approve?
Sir, I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommendation from the City Council on the recommendation from the Councilor's Office to make a change by repealing subsection 32-408, Chapter 32, and add in the subsections D and E to 5660 of Chapter 56.
I second Mr. Kula's motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Kula, seconded by Commissioner May, to approve item 5A. Further discussion? Do you have your votes, please? Approved unanimously. Item 4B, the applicant is Major Sheldon Ressler. Major Ressler has asked that this item be continued to the March meeting. Commissioner Martin.
I would
I make a motion to continue this item, and item 5B, until the March meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Martin, seconded by Commissioner Kula. You guys are arguing over here. Okay. Commissioner Kula, to defer item 5B to the March meeting. Further discussion? Have your votes, please. Approved unanimously.
Maybe quicker.
Item 5C, the applicant is Patricia Ward, 8400 Meadowlark Lane, Oklahoma City, 73132. The request is to consider the installation of a traffic signal at the intersection of White Oak Canyon Road and West Hefner Road. Ms. Ward, would you like to step to the podium, please? Yes, if you'd state your name and address for the record.
Patricia Ward, 8400 Meadowlark Lane, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Is there anything you'd like to add to your petition?
No.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Okay, let me have staff's report first then.
All right. You've got all our comments before you. You see that Hefner Road's a major arterial through this area, and White Oak Canyon Road is a public street which is on the south side of this intersection, and it's opposed by a commercial driveway into the shopping center on the north side. You've got all our comments relative to roadway width, posted speed limits, the collision history, traffic volumes. Based on the manual on uniform traffic control devices, this intersection, from a traffic volume perspective, meets 3 of the 9 consideration warrants for signalization. In reviewing case, we also note that access to the residential neighborhood on the south side of Hefner Road and on the east side of Rockwell, there are a total of 6 other public entry points into the subdivision, and 2 of which are already signalized, those being at Talbot Canyon Drive and Rockwell Avenue, and then one further to the east of this requested location, which is at Basswood Canyon Road and West Hefner Road. Since there's not a collision history or any decision site distance issues present, and we don't have any other indicators that adding a traffic signal at this intersection will necessarily improve access, especially for drivers from Hefner Road trying to get off. At this point in time, we don't have cause to recommend the installation of a traffic signal at this intersection at this time. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Do I have a motion? We have to have a motion and a second before we can have discussion.
I'll make a motion to deny the request.
I'll second.
Further discussion?
Ms. Ward, with this request, is it coming in and out of the shopping center that you're
Yes,
trying to accomplish?
I guess, yeah, on Hefner. Some of the people have told me they cut through the neighborhood, like I say, which makes more traffic flow in the neighborhood. I personally do not live in that neighborhood, and I do not shop there. I've been there a few times and decided to avoid that altogether. Other friends have said the same thing. They just avoid that shop at. So they go elsewhere, and that's what I do. But I just, at the time, and when I talked to Stuart, I said, it was really bad. I thought, I will not try to get out of that parking lot. I just won't, and I'm not going to run clear around to Rockwell or the others. I did not know of cutting through the neighborhood there, and I don't really know what the name of that neighborhood is. But in speaking to some people at church the other day, they commented too. They go, we cut through the neighborhood, and that's what we do, and go up and through, and that main street out of that neighborhood, there is a stoplight, and that's what they say. They go in and out that way for safety reasons. They won't even mess with it otherwise. I do have a friend who had her daughter, grown daughter, had a slight fender bender there. She either will go Rockwell in and out, or she avoids the shopette also, which unfortunately, I don't have a store, but if any of us did, that would really be bad because you're going to eventually, less flow. But it's a bad all the way around. I mean, Walmart, I think, is on the other side. And so I don't even kind of go down that area unless I'm going to Francis Tuttle. I'm just plain avoid a thing. That's one way to get around it. If there's not what I feel is safe enough for me, I just avoid a certain area and don't go. And in talking to people, I've heard the same thing. So, but I just thought at the time, I thought, wow. I've been here just over 6 years, and I was like, they could use a stoplight here. People get in and out. Because the rush hour, you're trying to come out to make a left or even a right, but I would have made a left if it were me heading back from my place. That rush hour traffic, morning and evening, I suggest people avoid it, totally, unless there's something to stop them. There's no etiquette behind the wheel as far as let's give and take and give you another turn. It's no, I'm on my way and I'm going where I'm going, and zoom, I'm going to get there.
Okay.
And I prefer to avoid those kind of situations.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Do any of the other commissioners have questions for Ms. Ward?
Well, I was going to ask if we could get traffic division or somebody out there to kind of monitor the number of vehicles during time of day and potentially look at improving the intersection by potentially having a no left turn sign on that intersection certain times of the day when the traffic is really heavy, so that people trying to go left have to cross 2 lanes of opposing traffic, merge into the third, and if there's a lot of traffic going at that time of day, it might be better to post the intersection and allow it to continue.
Well, if you look at the collision history, there's not been there's no unusual activity collision-wise, and there's good sight distance looking up and down Hefner Road. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if a turn restriction there necessarily be in order. Because also to that shopping center, they've got another driveway that goes in and out, and it's a little bit further to the west, so it's closer to Rockwell.
I was just using that as an example, because having 4 exits in that area should be represented as being fairly high, but if there's a way to reduce that and get it safer, we ought to take a look at it.
Okay, I was about to say, because, there's also access into this shopping center, also it's available on Rockwell as well, so it's and Hefner Road's posted at 40, so it's not an unusual situation that drivers are having to turn through. I don't know if...
I'm not even suggesting you spend a lot of time on it, other than to think about what might be a way to improve that area.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to ask Mr. Chai, too. He said in his recommendation that if the commission approved the traffic signal, that we look at widening, or a recommendation to widen West Hefner to include a turn lane. Is that in...
Right, and the reason being is if you look at some of the other surrounding signals, there's one that's on Rockwell at Basswood Canyon. It doesn't have turn lanes associated with it, and there's also one that's over on Hefner Road at Basswood Canyon. And the way we have to run those signals in order to provide for some left turn access, especially the ones that's over at Hefner and Basswood Canyon, we bring up time of day and day of week a plan where a left turn arrow for westbound traffic will come up first. And it's the best that we can do to serve a left turn demand when we don't have a means of detecting vehicles waiting to turn left because there's no dedicated turn lanes. And so if you're going to look at if you got to the point where you're going to consider a traffic signal at the intersection, it's probably best to do it with some channelization to create left turn bays to turn off of Hefner Road, either into the shopping center or into the neighborhood.
Further discussion? I have a motion by Commissioner Witcher, seconded by Commissioner May, to disapprove the request. Could I have your votes, please? Disapproved unanimously. Thank you. Item 5D, the applicant is Stephen T. Landis, P.E., Landis Engineering, LLC and Associates, 903 East 35th Street, Shawnee, Oklahoma. The request is to consider changing the on-street parallel parking on the south side of Northwest 24th Street to 45-degree angle parking inset between Northwestern Avenue to a point approximately 265 feet west of the west curb line of Northwestern Avenue. Mr. Landis, if you'd state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, I'm Steve Landis of Landis Engineering, 903 East 35th Street.
Could we have staff summary, please?
Okay, you've got our comments before you. Basically, the request before you is to change the current parking configuration on Northwest 24th Street from parallel to angle parking. We've field reviewed it. We don't see any major issues with the conversion, given the traffic volumes that are on Northwest 24th Street. Actions at the discretion of the commission, but all you'd be acting on in this particular case is authorizing the conversion of parallel parking on the south side of 24th Street to angle parking.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Clayton, seconded by Commissioner Martin to approve this item. Further discussion? Questions of Mr. Landis?
So the depth issue that is in the letter, the variance, that's for another commission to approve or disapprove, or is it just close enough, or what's the...
The only thing the commission can act on in this particular case is a request to review whether or not this particular section of 24th Street is suitable for angle parking. Any variances as far as, widths of parking stalls, angles, that sort of thing, that's not something that's to be considered at this level. That's all done through the building permitting processing portion of it.
Sir?
Yes, sir.
I certainly you've looked at the fact that right across the street is a U.S. Post Office facility.
Yes, sir.
That has to facilitate a lot of traffic.
Yes, sir.
And accordingly, with that additional, it's high volume of traffic, angle parking will not be an impediment to traffic flow because we know that traffic's going to stay there as long as that post office is there. And you've looked at that? Is that what I'm to understand?
Yes, so we have actually looked at that, and this should actually help the situation in the first place. Part of the other reason for this was this request was actually made to put in this angle instead of the parallel by the Urban Design Committee, and that was part of the recommendations of them to do that. We've already had to go through the variance board to get that taken care of from the City Commission. So the last part was get the plans, which actually have been approved to date, pending receipt of this by this board. And at that point, we'll get this, they'll try to go ahead and get it completed and finished out. Only concern we ever had that we've actually tried to work with this, with the city staff on was some question marks on ADA compliance issues on how to make sure we would have accessibility issues, and we've done the best we can within the confinement to actually, to make that occur to best accommodate those situations.
So if I understand this right, the parking will be expanded because of going from parallel parking to diagonal parking?
Yes.
And the traffic flow will not be impeded?
No, sir, not at all.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Landis?
So are there handicap parking places on this side?
Yes, there are. We went ahead and, there were not originally, but we did add 3 or 4. I think we did one in the middle and 2 on towards the end, so we actually added 3.
Okay.
Further discussion? I have a motion by Commissioner Clayton, seconded by Commissioner Martin, to approve item 5D. Could I have your votes, please? Approved unanimously.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us to item 6, comments from citizens. Mr. Najam, if you'd state your name and address, please.
My name is Jafar Najm, 4345 Southwest 29th Street. I'm the CEO, President of Thundercab in Oklahoma City. Before I say anything, I'd like to make it clear that my comments are just suggestions for the entire industry in good faith. They should not be taken as anything said for Thundercab or our requirements. I haven't done my homework completely as usual throughout my education, so I think we're going to discuss a little bit on 5A as far as city parking for taxi stands. As we stand currently, we have 4 taxi stands that the city has allocated for the entire industry. One is right next to Sheraton Hotel, one is by Renaissance, one is at the bus station, and the last newly appointed was at the Bricktown by Mickey Mantle. We have plus minus 300 vehicles, taxis, in Oklahoma City right now, which are operated by 3 different companies. So if you look at all these 4 stands, cumulative, you can park about, give or take, 18 cabs at these 4 stands. The way the industry works is that they're supposed to support the entire city, and within different time frames, how the business regulates itself. Some of the vehicles park in front of the hotels at the busy times to pick up the customers and take them to the airport. When Thundercab started about 5.5 months back, we started with 5 vehicles. We are now a little shy of 70 cabs. By the end of this year, we're going to have about 140 cabs. So naturally, there's the need of the hour now is to probably increase some of the spacing. So for all the industry, for all the companies together, maybe as a suggestion, moving forward, we might want to increase a few spaces of taxi stands. Because the drivers, when they line up, especially on Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays, the peak times when they line up outside these taxi stands are from 2:33 a.m. to 7:38, 8:15 a.m., and then again somewhere around 1:30 p.m. to about 5:36 p.m. Monday, Tuesdays are very slow days at the downtown. No one's heading to the airport. That's the time when we're bringing people in for their meetings to downtown. So you wouldn't see drivers parked all lined up. The second thing within our industry is it's a company's obligation. The management's work, most important work is that they're independent contractors. They pay the company to drive these vehicles. And in return, we invest that money intelligently to generate business for these drivers so they don't have to pool in just at one place to earn their money, so that they can scatter all over the city and serve the customer base, all the citizens. Some of the companies, they try their hardest, and you can provide that, but it takes the building time, it takes a little time. You can't just overnight let the entire city of 1.5 million know that here's a company, start calling us, especially when there are companies that have been sitting over here for 25, 30 years. There was just one company. So the customers have to get used to the company, the service, how good the service is. So till that time happens, you have these certain areas where all the drivers line up because they think this is the only place we can make the money. So knowing all these facts and how the business works and how the in-house is working with the field, my suggestion would be that still in downtown there are certain places where probably we can accommodate 10 to 15, 20 more vehicles by adding the stands where we don't have to utilize parking meters. Like I believe when I go out on the field, I see some of the cabs utilizing that. I've seen Thundercabs utilizing those, the other companies' cabs utilizing those, and at least the drivers are nice enough that they'll put the coins in so that they don't get the ticket. But still they're taking the meters away from the private citizens. One of my suggestions would be in front of the Chase building. We have enough space over there where a cab stand can come. Being proactive and thinking ahead, once the Devon building is complete, that is a place where we will get enormous business for taxis. If a stand can be thought out now, where the taxi stand can be, I think that can accommodate probably about 6 to 10 cabs over there. And then we can spread out between these three. You have these stands all across, and you would not see this spacing problem. Because during that time, the companies are doing their level best. Out of our 70 cabs now, when we started, we had an incoming call ratio of about 15 to 20 calls a day. Now we have an incoming ratio of about 130 to 150 calls a day. So the business grows, and that's what we're supposed to do. So when we started, all our Thunder cabs would early morning line up in downtown. Now they don't. You'll have the average normal business, 3-5 drivers in downtown. The rest are all over the city, from east, west, north, south, Edmond. The only market that we're going to tap into the next 14 days is Norman, once we get all our licensing, insurancing, and all done. Other than that, our cabs are in Yukon, Edmond, all over. So the drivers don't have to rely that the entire Thunder cab fleet has to line up in front of Sheraton, and 2 other companies are lined up in front of Sheraton, and we don't have space. Naturally, we will not have space. 300 cabs can't fit in Oklahoma City downtown. So just our suggestion, if we can think about it now, it just takes one sign, taxi stand. Maybe we can cover the meters. Maybe we can take those meters out, because this is not a temporary thing. It's a permanent thing. Yellow Cab operates on an average between, right now, based on the economy and how the market dictates, 130 to 150 cabs. We will operate somewhere around 130 to 140 cabs and 50 shuttles. That's where our company peaks out. Once Devon opens, this market's going to be a different beast for our industry. More accounts come in. It's a global headquarters for them. I don't know how MAP's going to work out. If we get the second runway, that connects us to the East Coast. Once that happens, Oklahoma City, it's a different economy we're talking about. Things are going to change tremendously. At that time, it's going to be very difficult, JIT, to put signs everywhere, because then the demand's going to be very different for taxi. With the mass transit that we have now, there's going to be a lot of dependency on cabbing, domestically and airport to downtown. So I personally believe it's a good thing. If we can be ready now, be prepared now, so to speak, do the soft runs now, I think we can solve these problems very easily. So again, to sum it up, just my suggestions for the entire industry, for all the companies concerned. We don't gain anything. Thundercab doesn't gain anything out of it. I think all of us does. So if we can do that, it's a quick fix, and it's permanent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Comments from commissioners?
Well, just to throw out, I'm sorry.
Before you do that, is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Would you be sure and fill out a blue form? You've got it. Thank you. We'll go ahead and hear all of the comments before we... If you'd state your name and address.
T. Valencia, 3511 Charleston Road, one of the owners of A1 Taxi. As Mr. Chai knows, I did come to him with this problem quite a bit. We talked about it, but we knew so much was going on downtown that there was, at the time, which I know it still is. At the time, there was a rebuttal that only the lazy drivers had to sit downtown. But I see that we've all come around to the same conclusion now, so I do agree we did a good job getting the taxis in, but now we have to have provisions for all those taxis. So I'd just like to restate, again, we do need more taxi stands and more provisions for the taxis. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask a question, Ms. Valencia? Do you agree with those possible locations? I think Mr. Najam said Chase and maybe somewhere around Devon. Are there other places where you...
I agree with those two. I think there are also some other opportunities for ones out there. As I said when we talked before, everything was so crazy down there that we've been kind of waiting for it to,
With what you know now, where would you...
I definitely agree with Mr. Najam. I think Devon would be excellent. It was one of my first suggestions was Devon. Chase would be another good one. I agree with him wholeheartedly on that.
All right, thanks.
Further comments or discussion?
Well, I'd just like to ask Mr. Chai to go over the way that taxi stands would be added. Does the taxi companies submit a letter to you with a recommendation, you do a little study and figure it out, and then you come to us?
Well, under ordinary conditions, I would say it would be that simple, going straight forward. But ordinarily, yeah, the commission does have to review the locations for open taxi stands. The one thing that they need to take into consideration is that all the aspects for the final parking configurations in the downtown area as part of the rebuilding downtown under Project 180, some of those finer details have not been fully fleshed out. So at this point in time, if the cab industry can give us some indication as to the number of locations and or the number of spaces and locations for some of these open cab stands, those can be referred on, and the project managers that are working on the Project 180 jobs can take a look at that and see how that might be able to be incorporated into the final configuration for Project 180, because I think that it would need to be done before some of these other projects are finalized and designed, because the one thing that the city's looking at is not only what do we do with the number and the availability of metered parking spaces in the downtown area, there's also commercial loading zones that will need to be looked at, accessible parking spaces for the disabled will need to be looked at, and it'll all be weighed together with the need for open cab stands and where should those go as well. So if representatives from the cab industry have got any recommendations or suggestions as to where they think it might do the most good and give us like an estimated number, then the group working on Project 180 would be able to take a look at that and see how that can be best worked in with the reconstruction of downtown.
So you would want them to submit to you an actual letter that says, we recommend adding 2 more spaces at this hotel here, adding 4 spaces at the Chase building, adding a couple more spaces down at the Bricktown area. When the Devon opens, we recommend here 6 spaces. Or just lay that out pretty clear for you. Is that what you're looking for?
Right. I think that would be the best way to go, because then it also have to be, then we take that, it would be reviewed by by city management that's working on the final plans for Project 180, and then after it's reviewed by that group, I think we'd be able to come up with a working solution that would be able to be referred back to the Traffic Commission for formal action.
Okay, and then is there a way that we could do some sort of temporary open stands, whether cover the meter with a little bag that just says taxi stand, and as all the work being done on the road that's going on around in the city, if all of a sudden a taxi stand is no longer appropriate, there's a hole in the ground now. Of course, we still need a taxi stand. It just can't be there. Is there any way we can have temporary taxi stands get approved?
Well, we have done a couple temporary stands, and a while back when Trigen was laying some new steam lines down Sheridan, their work closed off portions of Sheridan where we had open stands, and what we did is we temporarily relocated that stand to another location just so the cabs could keep operating. And then when that portion of Sheridan was reopened, we moved the stand back to where it was. So we already are taking into consideration the needs of the cab companies with respect to construction. But I think what they're looking for is long-term solutions to where are these stands going to be in the, after all is said and done downtown.
Well, let me just ask out here, is there anything that needs to be done like in the next month or two kind of thing, like this summer, to get ready for this summer, compared to the 180 work that's in the next year to 2 years?
If you'd step up to the microphone, please. Thank you.
Well, we'll add one other thing. Sometimes it's rather difficult to put some of these stands in or to even expand them, because we get into situations where we'll tear up one side of a road, and if we have to move traffic from one side to another, what we typically have to do is we have to sacrifice parking that was on the other side in order to facilitate two-way traffic flow. So even if we were to expand some existing zones right now, it's not to say that we would still have, we would probably need to move them around a corner or onto a different block. So it's quite a balancing act.
Well, that's what I'm looking at. So what you just talked about, by having them submit in 3 years from now, Devon's up and running, the whole city's quieted down, we got the MAPS 3 stuff going on down south. That's all nice and big thinking, and the way to do that is to have the 180 people consider all that in their big map. And so I just want to make it clear to them that that's a way of doing it, that you submit to them and say, hey, 3 years from now, when the city's done, we'd like you to think about open stands and in these areas. So that's one way. But what I want to make sure is that they don't have a need today, while all this work is being done in the next year to 2 years, that we need to work on, that we need to help them now. That's all I want to. So is there some things you need now? And if there are things you need now, I would recommend you write that down and say, here's some long-term stuff, but oh, by the way, right now we need help here, here, and here, and we recommend this. And then that way you can come to him and we can all talk about it here, and we can try to help you now.
Based on our research and our database, I can pretty much give a very accurate picture to Mr. Chai. As far as the Devon building goes, I think all the city engineers and all, they have to get with Devon. Devon has a very heavy hand on where they would even want or allow the taxi stand to be. So that's down the road. As for right now, on the Sheraton side, right in front of the Sheraton, the taxi stand covers 2 hotels, the Sheraton and the Skirvin. So the taxis are dispatched by the bellboys or whatever have you, and they actually cover both the hotels. On that stand, 3 cabs can easily fit in, but they squeeze in and put 4, because then you have the fire hydrant. So the drivers park, leave the fire hydrant empty, and then they park at the 2 meters behind. If conveniently those 2 meters can be covered for now, that gives the cab industry 5 cabs to be parked over there. On the southeast side of Chase Building, that entire steps, right when you come out down from the steps, that can accommodate 5 to 6 cabs very easily. And that covers, because we have about 40 to 45% based on our data and research, 40 to 45% of customer base that goes to downtown. That stand can cover Chase Building, because you have all your accounts for Devon in that building, and the Devon Building customer base that we bring from the airport. That stand can cover that. So that leaves for the entire cab industry to cover Sheraton, Skirvin, and Devon Building and Chase Building customer base can be covered by that cab stand. And that can cover, these are 11 cabs. On the Renaissance side, on southeast side, you can park about 5 to 6 vehicles, used to. Now the issue is Renaissance has these limos that they park. Those are parked not frequently, very seldom, but they have marked a limo parking, so to speak, just for the sake of it. And now, sometimes that driver gets antsy. That's my limo parking. And there's one white parking, and if the tire is just, 1 centimeter here or there, he just gets out and says, no, this is a limo park. Although there's no marking or anything, you have a taxi stand there, but he just, because he's a Renaissance driver. So you run into that. Renaissance, I don't think any cab driver is that worried about it because the volume has dropped down in Renaissance. Predominantly within our industry, all the call volume comes from Sheraton and Skirvin. Renaissance volume has dropped down over 30%. So within our industry, sitting in my office, I'm not really too concerned about Renaissance. The hotels we do business with is Sheraton, Skirvin, Waterford, Courtyard, Marriott. These are the...
So if you could just type up something and send to him asking for the 2 extra spots at that one, asking for some spots over by the Chase, and then down at Bricktown, did you say you wanted to add a little bit more at Bricktown?
Bricktown, actually, like we were having that conversation, Bricktown cabbing is very different. The drivers don't want to park. They don't make the money. Plus also the cabbing is different by nature because between 1:15 and 2 in the morning, the customer base, they can barely walk to a cab stand. They are so inebriated and drunk that they'd rather, even from our point of view, from safety and security point of view, you'd rather have the cab right in front of the bar door than to have a drunk individual with his girlfriend in his lap, all loud and crazy, not knowing where he's at or what his last name is, to walk and tell him, like, well, the cab stand is right over there. Why don't you cross the street and go to the cab?
So the 4 that are over there are fine.
So in Bricktown, and this is strictly my personal opinion, of being 12 years in this industry, I think we're utilizing the space and wasting it by having excessive biker parking. In front of every bar, right in front of the doors, you have these biker parkings. If you look at the average, maybe once a month or twice a month you'll see a few bikes over there. But every bar has these excessive biker parking that is utilizing the same space, which could be used either for cab parking, because past 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, throughout the nation, if you go to any cities, actually downtowns are open from 1 to 2 a.m. For these commercial vehicles for hire, because all the cities want that all those customers should get home safely. And who's going to take them? There are only 2 safe vehicles at that time, black and white and the cabs. Black and white is the safest one, get in the back seat, and after that, it's a cab. Cab's going to get you home safely.
Okay.
Unless you want to ride about black and white.
So here, if we could get some information quickly to him about, especially adding the 2 that you need at one spot, a new one at Chase, and get that working, and then in the future, get something sent to him so he can send it to the 180 people to consider open stands throughout the whole city as they make all the modifications.
And the Bricktown, too, you've got 2 blocks. Our Bricktown is so conveniently located. You've got two blocks, north, south, east, west, so it's not like it's all a round walk. So we don't have to. You've got 3 or 4 main bars. That's all we're talking about. You've got American Pub, City Walk, Mickey Mantle, and then you've got Wormy Dock. These are 4 locations where cabs do their business. Other than that, you can shut down Bricktown. Not a single driver will complain. And if we have these, and I was talking to Major Kent over there in downtown also, we had a meeting. No driver in Bricktown would like to park. That parking taxi zone that was asked for, that is an internal thing by Yellow Cab. It was done, I think, a year and a half, 2 years back, for the internal management for drivers to discipline their drivers, park over there, peg up. It was an internal thing. It had nothing to do with the drivers in Bricktown. They would like to just cruise because that's how they get the fares. Someone walks out of the bar, hey, taxi. That's Bricktown cabbing. City cabbing is entirely different. That's forced dispatch. So Bricktown cabbing is directly proportional to New York City cabbing. You walk out of Prudential building, the moment you raise the hand even to scratch your head, here comes 10 taxis pulling up. That's Bricktown cabbing. So you can't relate that cabbing once you get west of E.K. Gaylord. E.K. Gaylord on this side is different cabbing. You call the company. Cab will be dispatched to you. There, yes, you have to be at a certain place. Cab has to be dispatched. That is your particular cab. You know the driver's name. You know the cab number. So
Well, thank you very much. It's been
Thank
very,
you.
been very
Appreciate it.
informative.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
But I'll have that probably by end of business day tomorrow.
That takes us to item 7, reports from commissioners. Commissioner Witcher?
I would like to, just as a comment, with some, I guess, some news stories that have been going on lately. I'm a bicyclist, and on behalf of bicyclists, I appreciate the efforts the city has made to put some rules to our bicycle paths and get some signage on there. And can't speak for everybody, but me and my crowd that I ride with, we appreciate it and wanted to extend that and get that on the record. That we're
Thank you. Commissioner Martin?
No report.
Commissioner Kula?
No, sir, thank you.
Commissioner Clayton?
Personally, let me welcome Mrs. Judy. Looking forward to working with you. And by all means, I said this, and I said very clearly, my goal is to represent the masses. How will it affect the masses? And again, welcome.
Thank you. Commissioner Schuline?
No comment, thank you.
Commissioner Jenkins?
No comment.
Thank you and welcome aboard. Commissioner May?
I have 2 items. I was just going to thank Ms. Jenkins and welcome her to the group, just as said earlier. We appreciate you being here. I think we need to thank Ms. Pittman also for her years of service to this group and welcome her or wish her well. The second thing I was going to mention is that we're all aware that Officer Chad Perry was injured in line of duty in upholding the laws of Oklahoma City and the community. And so I would like to remind everybody that police officers put their life on the line every day. That's an example of what can happen. Hopefully never does, but can happen. So he's in our prayers, and I'd like to make a motion, if the chair would entertain it, that this whole group shows our support for Officer Chad Perry and his family. That's my motion.
I don't think we need a second on that. Okay. Thank you. Staff?
You've got our report regarding the installation of yield signs in some residential areas. There were a few that we had taken care of through the administrative process. Other than that, we don't have any other reports to add.
Okay. Ms. Jackson, do you have any further reports? Last but not least, Lieutenant George, thank you for coming in. Yes, sir. So moved. Okay, let's go home. Thank you.